Hi, here we are with the next essay, Victorianism. Choose one of the following topics and construct an argumentative essay based on research and your own close reading of the primary text. Remember, primary text refers to the actual literature itself, okay, as opposed to commentary on literature. So here's the first question. How did Robert Browning's concept of, quote, dramatic monologue, end quote, influence subsequent literature in the 20th and 21st centuries? Choose one of his poems from the syllabus and one work from the 20th or 21st century originally written in English in order to make your case. All right, so remember the dramatic monologue is really crucial to Robert Browning. Stephen Greenblatt's prefatory material, of course, discusses what dramatic monologue is, and we see examples of it in the poems that are on our syllabus. Okay. Now, dramatic monologue had a tremendous influence forward in time, right? And that's why I want you to choose one of the works, a good work written in the 20th or 21st century. Now, not every work is probably going to make for the best essay. You want to choose something good, of course. But again, it's all about looking at that concept of perspective and what I love to call the unreliable narrator. The one who's telling you a story, but you have to read between the lines to really understand what's going on, right? I mean, that's the whole thing with the dramatic monologue, right? We have somebody, some character, if you will, who's not the author directly. That by itself is not totally new, but the idea that that character is telling a story in a way that justifies his or herself. They, like in real life, if you will, people tend to tell stories that say make them look better. And even if they look bad, they don't look quite as bad, right? Because they're telling a story, they want to make themselves justified in what they've done or said or didn't do. So there you go. Question 2. You could choose to write on this one. How does Elizabeth Barrett Browning's Aurora Leigh, right, that verse novel that she wrote, we have a section of it in our textbook, continue the work started in Mary Wollstonecraft's essay, A Vindication of the Rights of Woman? Right, now that, of course, we read in the romantic section of this paper, or this course, pardon me. And Wollstonecraft, of course, raised a lot of issues, including the education of women, the role of women, how women are treated like children, right? They're not given the full authority or agency as an adult male, right? There was tremendous material in Wollstonecraft's essay. Well, now we fast forward several years, several decades, in fact, and you get to Browning's Aurora Leigh, a fictional work, right? But you have this main character, Aurora Leigh, who is, well, kind of in a very difficult position as a young, first of all, a girl, literally a child, and then as she gets older, a woman. How might Barrett Browning also be seen to differ from Wollstonecraft in arguing about the role or roles of women in the 19th century? After all, it would certainly be a mistake to call Elizabeth Barrett Browning a quote-unquote disciple of Mary Wollstonecraft, although they definitely have a lot in common. Final question. Choose one of the Victorian writers, Elizabeth Barrett Browning, Robert Browning, Alfred Lord Tennyson, or Matthew Arnold, and one of their works from the syllabus, and write a critique about what that work reveals about a sense of Englishness at the time. What does it mean to be English in the 19th century, in Victorian era particularly? A successful essay should first define what that concept means for Victorian England. Now, you may note that I did not include Oliver Wilde in this question, and that's, to be honest, quite deliberate. I think that Wilde's perspective is going to be very different, and that's why we term him a late Victorian, and I didn't really want to include him in this essay prompt because he really kind of doesn't make sense for that question. Now, the paper is due to be submitted to Canvas by Monday, July the 18th, 11:59 p.m. Be sure to follow the out-of-class essay guidelines for matters of form and style. Use correct MLA documentation as described in the MLA for Literature class handout or the MLA handbook itself. Be sure to include a word count at the end of your essay. Remember, you must meet minimum requirements, including word count, sources, and subject. No late essays will be accepted without a verifiable medical or legal excuse. Okay, so I've been hearing from some students about some medical problems, and I appreciate that. But please understand that I do need some kind of verification. Now, that doesn't mean I need to see personal and confidential information, but I do need to have some sense that this is true and real and not just a product of desperation. Now, some minimum requirements are pretty much the same as they were for the first essay, 1,000 to approximately 1,400 words. So you can always go a little bit over that. Please don't go under. Citations from at least 4 different sources. One of the sources must be the primary text. Okay, so in other words, the literature that you're working from. 2 sources at least must be from scholarly works, such as peer-reviewed journals or university press books. Those, of course, can be gotten through JSTOR or through our Mesa ebooks, or EBSCOhost is another database that has peer-reviewed journal materials. The 4th source can be a source of your choosing, but it must be a credible analytical source in its own right. The textbook counts only as primary text, although you may certainly use editorial materials in your essay. Okay, so again, please remember, as I said before, these are minimum requirements. These are not maximum requirements. That's why I say you may have more than these 4 sources, okay? And please make sure you have correct, current MLA format in presentation and documentation. Remember, we are now in the 9th edition of MLA. It is not the 7th, not the 6th. The 9th. And the 9th and the 8th are really close together. So if you have an MLA 8th edition handbook, you'll be totally fine. Don't worry about it if that's how you learn. But if you learned under 6th or 7th, you got to change. All right, so here's what we got in front of us. Good luck.